Those of you who have been disowned, what was your side of the story? Ex-wife who cheated on me with a close friend from my job during quarantine was stuck at home with my family for months while I was working. Apparently she'd been crying and making up sob stories to convince my family that I had cheated on her. When I found out I'd been cheated on, she told me, I wanted to make the divorce clean and didn't tell my family what happened. 2 months later I've moved for work and find out that they're still great friends with her and all believe that I was the cheater. The only blood relative who believes me is my youngest sister. Shit's depressing. Talk to your younger sister a lot. Let her know you appreciate her and love her. Your life will get better and you will find your perfect mate. Don't give up hope. I was told by my mother that my general existence causes more problems than it solves, and I had 2 weeks to either leave or kill myself. She didn't care which I chose to do, but if I killed myself I needed to make it look like an accident, or she couldn't collect on my life insurance. She decided this needed to happen because I'm disabled. Holy shit. Sorry for the caps. Your mother is one seriously fucked up woman. How old are you? I'm 34 now. This happened when I was 19, she died when I was 28, so it resolved itself in one way or another. I can't say I'm torn up about her passing all that much. Wow man. Hope you're doing well nowadays. That's super messed up. I'm doing alright. I moved in with some friends after this whole incident, and eventually got an apartment with my best friend. We've got cats, so my existence isn't perfect but it's doing pretty well all things considered. My father was a toxic narcissist bastard who stole all our family's money, then used the fact that we wanted nothing to do with him as a legal basis to claim estrangement, and cut us out of his will. There is no other side. My mom decided when I was 13 to 14 that she didn't want to have kids anymore. Her and my dad divorced. So my dad moved out of the family house and my mom was newly single. So she gets my sister out first by asking my sister to go away to stay with our dad for the weekend. When my sister came back, my mom had packed all her items in boxes and said, "Find somewhere else to live." Sister was maybe 15. Her reasoning is she didn't like the crowd my sister was running with. With me, I stuck around longer. I took more abuse and neglect. My mom didn't cook, or clean, or have food in the house. And despite getting child support, if I asked for shoes or anything, ask your father, don't ask me. Despite not having food or money, she wouldn't give me the alarm code to the house, or a key. I could only come home if she was home. One day she agreed to drive my friends and I to the movies. Well, her and I got into a small argument about something in the morning. I don't remember what, and I left and arrived home in the afternoon. She was home but wouldn't let me in. I was a 13 to 14-year-old kid, before cell phones were that commonplace. Ringing the bell, peering in the windows. She wouldn't let me in. Finally I found an open window and climbed through, and she coldly looked at me and said, "You know, I could have you arrested for breaking into the house if I wanted to." I went to live with my dad shortly thereafter. She moved away to live with a guy she met from the internet. Sponsored him to come into the country with his 12-year-old son. By the time I was 16, she was married and moved the guy in, and bought his son new video games, travel allowance, his own apartment when he was a teenager, and wouldn't even buy me shoes. Well, she gave this guy access to her bank account, and he took all her money. Her entire life savings. All her money in the world. She lost her house and became homeless. My sister took her in at the time. My mom eventually got back on her feet a little bit, got a job. I tried to repair the relationship and be nice. Never for long. Finally, she had some kind of mental breakdown a few years ago when I was in my early 30s, and called my office demanding I help her. Something happened at work where her mental health went sideways and she started behaving very erratically. For some reason, when she called my colleague speaking nonsensically and rambling about me, my colleague decided to give her my number, to take it up with me myself. My colleague said she felt bad after. So I tried to help my mom, and spent all this time talking to her boss, her union rep, her neighbors, her doctor, trying to help her. And she just kept going crazy and being abusive, not willing to accept my help. I washed my hands of her. So she disowned me when she got a better family, and then I tried to help her but she tried to take me down with her. I've never gotten a solid explanation since they don't talk to me anymore, but my cousins stopped having anything to do with me as soon as my aunt died. as in literally the day after the funeral. I was very close to my aunt and loved visiting with her, calling her to check in, having her over for dinner, etc. But I always had the distinct impression that my cousins didn't like it for some reason. I didn't understand why since she saw them every week, so it's not like I was taking her away from them or asking her for anything. I never asked my aunt about it since I didn't want to upset her. About a year before she died, she told me that I was one of her own. What a shame that her children never felt the same way. Your aunt left inheritance which they don't want you to know. This is exactly what though. She left stuff they want to you and they are ignoring the will. Mom saw that I'd worn some of her clothes while she was in another province for work. I came home to her screaming that I'd sold thousands of dollars of her clothing to my high school friends. We were so poor we had to steal food. Nobody bought any clothes. Nobody stole them either, lol. She then said she was going to destroy everything I owned, and in a panic I hid in my room and put the dresser against the door. She started throwing herself against it, and I was terrified to realize she was gonna get in. My lava lamp fell, I caught it, and threw it when she forced the door open. She screamed. I jumped out a window and ran barefoot to a friend's house. She called the police accusing me trying to murder her. I turned myself in and told the police that I did assault her and would accept any charges. They released me to my friend's house and told my mom that they'd charge her with child abandonment if she kept pushing. Her ex-best friend drove 4 days to get me. She signed over the ownership papers and I've had an amazing dad ever since. I don't consider myself disowned, but I have been cut off from seeing my younger siblings. I've pretty much disowned certain family members myself. My mother, 50, has been abusing her position of EPOA for my Alzheimer's adult grandmother, 80, via extortion, and unlike everybody else, I choose to hold the bitch accountable for her actions, because her selfish actions lead to my Nana nearly needing her feet amputated from having lack of medical care and attention. I told everyone what she was doing and nothing happened. No one wants to prosecute her because apparently legal fees are more important than getting my grandmother justice. So, essentially, I was disowned for exposing her extortion. My biological father is an abusive alcoholic, but also super Christian, and super redneck conservative. He gave up his rights when I was 4, which my mom always told me was for the best. After I found out I was pregnant, he added me on social media and saw where I had shared some posts with pro-choice views. I guess it bothered him because he blocked me, lol. My dad. It was mostly my decision because we used to do hard drugs when I was a kid. Growing up I thought it was normal until friends found out, and told me they were worried about me. I first overdosed when I was 14 from drugs he gave me, and let me just say it was all downhill from there. I'm 13 years sober now, but I kicked him out of my life around the same time. My dad still says horrible things about me and his whole family believes him, so I cut them all out. It's definitely for the better, as I have created my own family with supportive friends. Screw that mess. My 90-plus-year-old grandma has dementia now. Apparently, she disowned some male person sometime in her life, and now she gets confused about who exactly she disowned. So, there are days when it's me who is disowned. Sometimes it's one of my brothers, or cousins, or uncles. We all just take turns being disowned for a day. It was tough at first, but now we all find it pretty amusing and just a natural part of caring for a senior family member. Wow, so where to begin? My family is very traditional even for our culture's standards. I grew up thinking that my family was Americanized and that the women in my family were shattering the glass ceiling and things couldn't get any better because we were allowed to wear pants, were required to finish high school, allowed to go to college if we had the money ourselves, and we weren't sold off for marriage. My generation even grew up being called and thinking of ourselves as liberated because we had options beyond being housewives. Even though I saw all these things as amazing freedoms thanks to living an American life, I still wanted more. I wanted to be able to leave the house on my own, I wanted to hang out with friends, I wanted to question things, I wanted to move away, live and work wherever I wanted, and I wanted privacy, even if it was just a lock on a door. So I was a difficult child, as my family put it, and that turned into being a rebellious teen, especially when I started seeing a lot of the other freedoms other girls at my school had. When I turned 18 I was kicked out, and by 19 I had met my husband and my family didn't approve. They eventually told me that I can either be allowed back into the family or I can be with him and get disowned. So I chose him and ended up moving across the country without anyone knowing. I didn't hear from my family, except my grandma, for about 2 years. Then a family friend I kept in touch with ended up telling my family that my life was going really well. My mom started to contact me when she heard, but it took over 6 years for the rest of my family to even acknowledge that I was even alive. It wasn't until my husband and I hit our 9-year anniversary and my family saw what my husband's competition was, then they started to treat us like people and want to start talking to us and building relations with us. I keep in touch with a few of my family members, but I keep them at arm's length. I gave up the possibility of any meaningful family bonds a long time ago, and the communication now is mostly surface-level cordialness. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.